Tales of the Dark.
This is Tales of the Dark by Commander Lore Apuron. Subject H9.
His vitals have dropped to critical levels. 20 cc's of metrobutylin, quick! 20 cc's of metrobutylin prepped, handing off. His heart stopped. Ejecting. Ready the charge pack. Again. Again. I had high hopes for this one.
Send word when you've made progress. Real progress. Vice Admiral Leroy parts from Professor Weslin, followed by two massive guards in full uniform. Professor Weslin wasn't being deceptive to save face with his superior. He truly had high hopes for him. Physiology, brain chemistry, hormonal response. He had been the most viable candidate so far.
He's back. Vitals stabilizing. Get a gurney. I said get a gurney. Unbelievable. There may be hope for you after all. H9.
Subject H9 woke up in a daze. The room appeared to be spinning in circles, and his body felt sluggish as he raised his arm to motion for the nurse, but her back was turned, attending to some medical supplies at a nearby desk.
I need...
The harsh white lighting of the medical room felt as if it were being forcefully injected into his eyes, causing them to squint and twitch. His arm continued to reach out to the nurse. Subject H9 attempted to roll over, but in some part of his mind, he knew it would make this feeling worse. So he lay there, unmoved, save his outstretched arm, as what was previously inside of his stomach began to surface to his mouth from within him. His arm dropped as he struggled to breathe. The nurse, noticing the sound of H9 moaning, whipped around to force H9 onto his side. A pile of horrendously colored liquid began to pile upon the floor at the side of his bed.
Breathe. Breathe.
The nurse said gently, rubbing his back in an effort to alleviate the pain. H9 was barely conscious, but just enough so that he could hear and understand the words coming from the nurse's mouth.
I'll kill them this time.
She rolled him onto his back again and wiped the remaining vomit that had smeared onto the surrounding areas of his mouth.
I will. I swear.
She continued. H9's vision began to fade. It was instances like these that made it difficult to grasp why he was here, how he was here, and who were these people. These instances, being daily occurrences, did not make it any easier. H9's vision entered into blackness as he fell back to sleep. Professor Weslin sat at his large antiquated oakwood desk he had brought to the discreet azimuth facility he was currently stationed on. He was still apparently taken aback by the fact that H9 had survived the procedure. There had been only one other, Subject D2, that had even survived it.
Now I have a pattern. I could compare the two subjects and determine their likeness so as to reproduce it in others,
he thought, scratching at his slicked back, jet black hair, causing a few strands to come out of place. The sound of a doorbell at the door of his office broke his cogitation and invited him to reset his posture.
Come in.
A woman in a long white lab coat entered into the room, hands in pockets. She approached the professor until she was within arm's reach of him.
You sent for me?
She said.
Yes. Number 3, I simply need a perspective to see from a different angle at this morning's events.
The professor swiveled his chair and stood up abruptly. He continued talking as he walked over to the window in his office that overlooked the operation room.
Recall the events for me, if you will.
It was quite apparent that the researcher he had summoned was nervous, yet she was still.
The subject awoke at 0700 hours, was provided with a 4A ration pack, and was...
Never mind that.
The professor interrupted.
Skip ahead to the procedure, my dear.
The woman was beginning to perspire.
Subject was suited and then set up with an impulse node network at 113 points of contact by around 0830, to which we were given the green light to proceed with the procedure after all system functions were verified as operable.
She paused as the professor poured himself a cup of tea from a ceramic tea set.
Do go on, number 3.
He insisted.
Subject was placed into the vessel at 0853. At all systems nominal, the subject's vitals were within normal parameters until 0857, to which the subject was retrieved from the vessel and required resuscitation.
Good. Now, remind me, which station were you overseeing?
Professor Wesleyan continued probing.
Vitals, sir.
The woman was now visibly shaking.
So, upon reviewing the log, it appeared that, and you must know I am simply trying to understand, that vitals were outside of normal acceptable parameters at 0857 and 23 seconds, and your decision to pull the subject was commanded at 0857, 41 seconds, yes.
He spoke with an obviously chiding tone.
That is correct, sir.
The researcher responded, after a moment's hesitation.
You fuck with my patient,
the professor yelled, entering into a state of utter beratement.
You dare toy with my creation? Is it yours to decide, you torturous suit?
Professor Wesleyan hurled his cup of tea at the woman, to which she stumbled backwards just in time to avoid it. The cup shattered against the wall at the other end of the room, emptying its contents onto the wall.
You are done. Finished. I will see to it that there will be no place for you anywhere in Azimuth. Be gone from my sight.
The woman did as she was told and fled from the irate professor. As the door closed behind the woman, he proceeded to straighten up his gray suit jacket and regrouped his now messed up hair. The caramel-colored liquid slowly dripped down the wall and began to pool in the corner. H9 stared at the ceiling of his quarters. To rescue himself from boredom, he imagined that the wall texture was his night sky view back in his hometown, or at least how he remembered it. Most things had become a distant, blurry memory, even if they had happened not long ago. There was not much he could even remember from before. He could feel a slight breeze circulating in his room, created artificially by the facility's ventilation system. Yet it certainly did not aid in removing the mild stench of his quarters' proximity to the operation room. His quarters were hardly even quarters, anyways. It was a room with a bed, a laboratory, and a solitary metal office chair. He hated that chair. He didn't know why. He just did.
At least I won't have to go through with the procedure again. For a while,
he thought, realizing a pattern, that they refrained from forcing him into that thing for at least a week after a life-threatening attempt. He supposed that that was one positive outcome of his terrible experience 2 days ago. Then again, it would just be delaying the inevitable.
Got some food for you,
a man announced as he banged his fist on the entrance door, startling H9. A small sliding metal hatch slid into the wall, leaving an opening just large enough for a plate of food. As quickly as it had opened, it had closed, and H9 was left alone once again.
They can't even provide decent food before I die.
H9 couldn't help but think, referencing the plate of what looked like food but certainly did not taste like it. He walked over to the door to retrieve his breakfast and returned to his bedside to eat, as there was no table, only that stupid chair. Just as he was about to shovel the first bite of food into his mouth, he was again startled by a fist banging at the entrance to his quarters. Not a second after, it had opened, and in came a man in a long white coat.
"Hello, H9. I'm here to administer a medication to go along with your meal. May I do that?"
The man said, clutching a slim tubular device. H9 waited to respond, and then shoved the spoon into his mouth.
"As if I had a choice,"
he responded, his voice distorted due to being full of food. The man said nothing, but approached H9.
"I want to see the man,"
H9 said in between bites.
"I'm sorry? I want to see the man. The man behind the glass that I see before getting into that thing,"
H9 clarified. He knew that it was a long shot, but if he had any hopes for survival, he had to first obtain a grasp on the situation that he was in.
"I'm afraid that's not possible. The professor does not commune with the subjects."
That's something.
H9 thought. That would mean two things. His suspicion that the man behind what was going on here was likely the man that watched from afar behind a wall of glass during what the people in the long coats called the procedure, and that he was not the only one. That was enough information to form the beginnings of a working plan for escape.
"Why not?"
H9 continued, attempting to take advantage of the man's openness.
"He just doesn't." "Hold still,"
the man commanded as he injected the medication into the arm of H9.
"All finished. I'll leave you be."
H9 had so many more questions, but the man was walking away. What were they doing to him? How much longer until the next event? What was his name? These questions that surfaced almost involuntarily caused his eyes to well up. Shouldn't everyone at least know their own name? He had now lost his appetite.
"What's my name?"
H9 pleaded, but the man said nothing. He just turned his head to the side for a brief moment, then walked out the door. H9 was left alone, staring at the plate of food on his lap. The plate was soon accompanied by drops of water, falling from H9's face.
"Sir?" Yes?"
The professor looked up from his desktop screen.
"We're ready for your review, sir."
Indeed, I will be there right away,"
said the professor, remaining at his desk and returning his attention towards the screen.
"Sir."
The man speaking to the professor turned away to exit the professor's office.
"Oh, number 4.
The professor grabbed the attention of the man before he exited.
Have you ever tried Valerian tea?"
"I can't say that I have, sir."
The man replied.
"A shame. Do let me pour you a cup. It is divine, above all things divine. It is tremendously palatable. I never met someone that hadn't agreed with Valerian tea. Come."
Professor Wesleyan motioned for the man to come closer and handed over a ceramic cup of tea. The man tasted it.
It is good, yes."
"Great. I am delighted,"
the professor nearly yelled, immediately responding to the man's assessment, as if he already knew what he was going to say. The abruptness of the professor's response startled the man, causing him to fumble his cup and spill a couple of drops.
My apologies, sir,"
the researcher said.
It's none the matter. I'll join you for the review in a moment,"
said the professor, sipping his own cup of tea.
"Oh, take that with you,"
Professor Wesleyan insisted, before the man had the opportunity to protest. He did so, and turned to exit the room as he had done so before, but he stopped just shy of the door.
"Professor?"
"Yes?"
"Subject H9.
"Yes?"
The professor whipped around at hearing Subject H9.
H9, he, asked for you,"
continued the man with a degree of hesitancy.
"He... what?"
said the professor, commanding his ear towards and leaning into the man's direction. The tone of his voice had deepened, distinguishing it from his typical pretentious way of speaking.
He asked for you, wondered who you were, and requested to speak to you,
answered the man.
And you said?
Inquired the professor, maintaining his deep tone of voice. The man was visibly nervous now. Not so much that it was obvious, but enough for Professor Wesleyan to detect.
I said that you don't interact with the subjects, and left it at that.
The professor cut short what he was going to say, but it could not be mistaken that he was furious.
By speaking to H9, you have not only indicated that I am of importance to this operation, but that he is not the only subject. You...
Again, the professor held back.
Do not converse with the subjects. Administer and leave,
the professor commanded, and waved the man away as he turned his back to him. He took the hint and left.
I command a brigade of fools,
thought the professor. He turned back around, straightened up, and took a deep breath. A caramel-colored stain on the wall focused into his view. He grimaced with tempered rage.
How are you?
H9 had become familiar with the janitor, or cleaner, or whatever his official title was in this place. It had only been what he believed to be weeks since he had been here, and he was the person that he liked the most. He did not speak much, but he seemed to be the only one that cared to even converse with him on any level that made him feel like a human being. He came by once a day to sanitize and tidy up H9's quarters, no doubt to aid in keeping him healthy, for whatever this place facilitated.
Can't say the food is great, but otherwise I'm golden,
H9 responds. The cleaner's gruff appearance complemented his stiff body. The smell of a sterilizing cleaning agent flooded the room, as he started with the wall closest to the door, using a scrubbing pad extended with a pole. The odor always gave him a headache. H9 wondered why the man chose to work here, of all places. The cleaner grunted. H9 glanced to his right at the door. A security guard was there, as usual, for protection. Whom that protection was for, however, was not clear to H9. Was he too valuable an asset that even the facility's cleaner needed to be watched over? Or was the guard there to ensure that H9 did not harm the cleaner in order to escape, or out of a state of manic desperation?
How long does it take to grow a beard like yours?
H9 asked. He was genuinely asking. Even the matter of time had become ill-perceived for him.
More time than you've been alive,
he replied. The cleaner was now at the laboratory. Subject H9's heart began to beat faster as he watched the janitor approach the sink basin.
I'm sorry,
thought H9.
Have you confirmed the stability of the Union telemetry?
Yes.
Then why was there a .014 discrepancy value for the cranial expression warrant?
I'm not sure. The discrepancy wasn't there a second ago. I'll run diagnostics immediately and...
The discrepancy wasn't there a second ago,
Professor Wesleyan said in a mocking tone.
Good God, you do have eyes number 2, yes?
Yes, sir.
One of the men in a long coat replied, dutifully.
Maybe, then, you require assistance to use them,
the professor retorted. Quite abruptly, he grabbed the back of the man's head and thrusted it into the screen that he was looking at. The man writhed in protest.
Maybe you could read it now, yes?
The jostling of the man's body attempting to relieve himself from the grip of the professor was causing the professor's well-kept slick-back hair to loosen a number of strands. He had the face of an animal, apathetic to the living thing that he was toying with.
Sir,
a security guard had approached him. Professor Wesleyan did not react.
Sir,
the guard repeated. Finally, the professor turned his head to look at him, maintaining a wild look in his eyes.
Subject H9 has escaped. We are looking for him now.
Professor Wesleyan stood up straight. letting go the man he was throttling.
What?
The professor exclaimed, in a state of disbelief and rage.
He escaped, sir.
The guard responded.
I heard you,
said the professor in a condescending way. He headed in the direction of the subject's quarters, with the guard following at the hip.
Look in every corner, in every crevice, station an exterior perimeter, and sound the alarm for God's sake.
Sir.
The guard parted with Professor Wesleyan. The professor was now at Subject H9's quarters. He witnessed a flooding room, water billowing out of the sink basin in the laboratory, but no H9. Just a cleaner with a long beard, standing in the corner and clutching his cleaning rod, staring at the professor. Professor Wesleyan grimaced with tempered rage. H9 ran through what seemed like an endless array of halls. The bland aesthetics and exaggerated uniformity of the facility made it extremely difficult to navigate. He could not tell where he was in relation to where he was before, so he just kept running. He passed by many people in long white coats, startled by the presence of a boy sprinting through their corridors. He ran, and he ran. He stopped in the center of the larger room and noticed a set of double doors at the end of it. It was unusual in the sense that the rest of the doors were single doors, and not a pair.
That must be the exit,
he thought, and began running as fast as he could towards them. He was nearly there when the sight of several security guards turned around the corner, presenting as an obstacle between H9 and the doors. H9 immediately reacted and made a left down another hallway. The guards commenced a pursuit. He ran, and he ran. He ran until somehow, some way, he made it back to the operation room near where his quarters were. It was a massive circular room with tempered glass panes surrounding the lower third of the room. He halted in place, since there were now guards in front of him, in addition to the guards that had been pursuing him from behind. The guards paused in place, weapons aimed at H9. H9 looked up. The walls spanned 3 stories in height, and there was no ceiling, just an opening into the night sky. He imagined that he would think it beautiful if he was under different circumstances, the stars and all. But he was here, a prisoner. If only he could lift himself off the ground and levitate towards them. Certainly, that was wishful thinking.
Don't move,
yelled the security guard that had been with Professor Wesleyan earlier. As if he had teleported to the room at the sound of the guard's words, the professor walked in.
H9. Let me introduce myself. My God, I've been rude in not doing so earlier,
the professor said. He did not know why, but H9 hated this man. Everything inside him seared with rage at the appearance of this man.
I am Sergei Wesleyan. It has recently come to my attention that you wish to speak to me. Well, here I am. Let's talk.
The professor omitted his title and opted to use his first name in order to sound more personable, but H9 saw through it.
I do not want to speak to you. I want only to leave,
H9 declared.
Name anything and it shall be yours. But to leave is the one thing that I cannot permit. You see, you are important, H9. You are the one thing that may stop the death of millions, of billions.
H9 looked around. Everyone he had grown accustomed to was here now in this room, together. The cleaner, his nurse, the researchers, the guard that stood by his doorway. He felt the weight of everyone's eyes bearing down on him. H9 turned his gaze towards the weapons aimed at him. The one and only thing that he had to his advantage was that they would not, under any circumstance, hurt him. His physical body was too sacred to them to damage. Why? He did not know. He simply knew that this was the case. No one spoke for some time. H9 thought carefully about what he was going to say next. What was there to say?
What's my name?
No one spoke. The only sound in the room was the sound of the alarm.
Your name?
The professor stuttered.
Your name is Hero. Your name is Salvation. You are our salvation, H9.
If it were possible, H9 would have hated this man even more. He did not want these things for himself. He simply wanted identity. He wanted free will. He did not even remember what it was truly like to have these things, but he knew that these were what he wanted most of all.
H9?
The professor vied for a response, but H9 did not answer. He just looked up at the stars above him.
H9?
Asked the professor once more.
I don't have time for this.
The professor commenced a quick pace towards H9 at the protest of the guards, who began yelling at H9 not to move. H9 himself remained still, for he did not know what to do. The professor, now right next to him, grabbed H9 by the arm and led him towards the center of the operation room. The commotion in the room was almost unbearable. The security guards yelling, the professor screaming at them to shut up and get out of my way. The professor and H9 were now heading for what resided at the center of the room. It was a vessel of some sort, but it was not a vessel that seemed to be manufactured, but birthed. It had organic features and seemed that at any moment it would start moving its long, thick arms that mimicked tentacles of a particular species of life on Earth. It was a dull brownish gray color, with silvery repetitive detailing that added to its off-worldness. As H9 and the professor got closer to the vessel, it glowed a brighter orange.
Stop this! You'll kill him!
The nurse shouted from one end of the room. The professor did not give notice. Some of the guards shifted their attention towards her. When she realized that he did not hear her words, she inched forward, slowly removing a small and slim tubular device out of her coat pocket.
Put it down! Drop it!
Ordered a security guard, her attention fixed on the nurse, and with weapon aimed. The professor and H9 were now within arm's reach of the vessel.
Leave him be!
The nurse cried. The sound of a loud barrage of gunshots pierced the air, and the nurse fell to the ground, her body rated with vibrant red bullet holes. The professor did not even flinch, nor did H9. The confusion in the room forced him into a state of complete detachment. H9 looked at the vessel. It was now glowing a very bright orange, accompanied by a low and pulsating hum. The professor still held on to H9's arm and used his other to press a number of buttons on a panel adjacent to the vessel.
Put it down!
Another guard yelled. H9 looked over to see the cleaner wading through a pool of blood to retrieve the device that the nurse had dropped and began running towards the professor. Not 10 feet away, he slipped, no doubt caused by the blood that had coated the bottom of his boots. Once on the floor, the security guards unleashed another barrage of bullets into the flesh of the cleaner. The professor was oblivious to it.
You will save us, H9. They will see.
The professor stated, his voice nearly inaudible. Although he was talking so that only H9 could hear him, it was not even directed towards him. It was as if he was in his own world, and H9 was just an instrument of that world. H9 did not protest. His body seemed to lose all motor capabilities, and the world around him was simply a blur. He did not understand how or why, but he was now inside the strange vessel.
Feels strange,
he thought. All he saw now before him was the professor, his hair wild and in disarray. The professor's face began fading into black as H9 submitted to the vessel, as he was forced before, again and again. He could hear Professor Weslin's final words to him.
They will see you, H9.
H9 felt his body transform into something new. He felt as though he melted into the vessel. His sensory field expanded. He could not see everyone in the room, but he could feel them. It was almost as if they were just heat signatures, and he was the device reading them. He read the nurse and the janitor, laying in a slowly expanding pool of their own blood. He read all 37 security guards, each in a different location and distinct postures. He read the opening in the sky above him, and knew exactly how far away he was from the top. He read the professor, his arms stretched wide as if he were receiving applause from an absent audience. He was in union with the vessel. H9, who was now the vessel, was levitating above the facility now, emanating that low, pulsating hum. He could not tell if he was imagining it, or if it was really happening, but the vessel appeared to speak to him.
Take home.
The sound of its voice seemed to radiate from within H9. It was warm, but also desperate.
I dream of home.
The vessel continued. Blood began to well up in his mouth and drip from the corner of it into the vessel. Despite this, H9 did not feel any pain. What he did feel was an overwhelming urge to contribute to the vessel's sentiment.
I want to go.
Home.
The stars over H9 were full with a heavenly vibrance.
Take me home.
This has been Tales of the Dark by Commander Lore Apuron.